I am Jenny Rosales, and I will be talking about the seven major philosophies of education according to Bilbao and others. So let's start with the essentialism. So essentialism means tries to instill all students with the most essential or basic academic knowledge and skills and character development. So mainly it focuses on the belief that there are certain things that a student must know and accomplish. So it would enable the schools to concentrate on getting students ready for work in the real world. So in short, essentialism teaches those essential things in life. From the word essentialism, from the root word essential means important things that need to be taught by the teachers to the learners. So there are three questions that need to be considered and need to be addressed and philosophies of education, and let's start with why teach. Why teach essentialism? So essentialism contends that teachers teach for learners to acquire basic knowledge, skills, and values. Essentialism is the fundamental skills of the students. So the learners have the right to know important knowledge on a regular basis, which is why this curriculum needs to be taught to them. So teachers do not teach in order to radically transform society. Rather, they teach in order to pass on the traditional moral values and intellectual understanding that students require in order to become model citizens today and in the future. So, this is the reason why essentialism needs to be taught to the learners. For the learners to be equipped to face on their future lives, and for them to have a knowledge on how they can contribute to the society. So the next one is what to teach. The emphasis is on academic content for students to learn the basic skills or the fundamental R's, which are reading, writing, arithmetic, and right conduct. So these are the fundamental subjects or fundamental information that the teachers need to be that the teachers need to teach to the learners, which are the writing, reading, arithmetic, and right conduct, because these are very important on the regular basis or the day-to-day living here on earth. So these are necessary for the development of higher level or more complex abilities in preparation for adulthood. So this will help for the students for their preparation for their future lives. The traditional areas of arithmetics and natural science, history, foreign language, and literature are all included in this program. So the next one, how to teach. How to teach essentialism. So essentialist teachers emphasize mastery of subject matter. They are expected to be intellectual or informative and moral models of their students. So they are seen as the fountain of information and as a paragon of virtue. So teachers are considered to be dispersion, or they are the dispersion of information. So teachers must adhere to the core criteria, which include a longer school day and academic year. So there is a long time preparation for teaching essentialism. So it needs more time in order to master this philosophy. So they must also determine what approach should be employed to teach the students this curriculum, especially that in this modern times, we need teachers need to adapt for the learning styles or learning abilities of the students. So teachers must determine what approach or what kind of approach that they need to employ it in order to facilitate the learning of the students. So an example of essentialism is teaching mathematics. So why we need to teach mathematics? What is the reason why there's a need in teaching mathematics? So we need to teach mathematics to help and guide the students in solving problems that would relate to real life scenario, especially in the daily basis. So that would involve finances. So what to teach? Begin with the basic mathematical skills, the mathematical operations such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And how to teach? This is the application of the knowledge that they have been learned from the discussion or from the lecture of the learning facilitator. So this is the application. How to teach? So employ some techniques like they are given a scenario on that, and that they will be going to apply their learnings to that scenario. Example, they are going to buy a food worth of five pesos and they have 10 pesos. So they're going to subtract 10 pesos and their 10 pesos, they're going to subtract it to the food that they bought, which is the 5 pesos. So they have now the 5 pesos, the remaining money, which is 5 pesos. So this is very applicable to the young learners. Next one, we have progressivism or pragmatism or experimentalism. So, education should be teaching students the things that are practical for life and encourages them to grow into better people. So this involves experience and experimentations of the students and their learnings. So progressivists believe that individuality, progress, and change are fundamental to one's education. So the reason why there is evaluation in order to know the worth or the merit of the certain information or knowledge that has been taught. So in order also to know that there is progress in that area. So why teach progressivism? So progressivist teachers teach to develop learners into becoming enlightened and intelligent citizens of a democratic country. So they educate students so that they can live fully in the present rather than to prepare them for adulthood. So the reason why progressivism should be taught is so that we can track a student's progress and assess them become a more progressive person. So this is very important that learning facilitators need to know the progress of the students or the learners. So in essentialism, it will be taught in order for the students to be prepared on their future, and while the progressivism, it will be taught in order for the students to be prepared for their present lives and how they would act, how they would adapt the changes in the society, and how progressive they are. And now let's go to what to teach. What to teach in progressivism. So the progressivists are identified with need-based and relevant curriculum. So this is a curriculum that responds to students' needs and that relates students' personal lives and experiences. Progressivists recognize that life is impermanent and that change is unavoidable, which is true. The only constant here on earth is change. The only thing that does not change is change. And that is true. As a consequence, progressivist teachers are more focused with teaching students how to cope with change. So this would not surprise the students because they have already been taught how to adjust to changes in life. So the students would not be shocked on, oh, what's happening here, what's happening there. So they're already taught what would be their expectations now already. So they are taught na taught na prior to their knowledge. So they are ready na to face the challenges and the present times. And how to teach progressivism. So progressivists employ experiential methods, involves experiences, the learner's experiences. So they believe in John Dewey that one learns by doing. So now we are in the modern times, and um, as we can see that DepEd is employing student-centered approach in each schools, especially in in our curriculum today. And I also believe that John Dewey's theory learning by doing is very effective. That when you do, you can also learn. That you will learn what you will do. So that's it. It's about experience, constructivist. So experience, as mentioned in a popular quote, is the best teacher, which is true. One cannot learn if he or she does not value the experiences that come his or her way. So teachers must anchor the experiential way because it assists students in orienting themselves to real life situations. So what is the best way to instruct? Teach them using a hands-on approach or the experiential way. Let them experience. Let them learn by their own experience, by their own experiences. So the next one, we have perennialism or the rational humanism. So this philosophy is focus of education should be the ideas that have lasted over centuries. So perennialism proposes that education should be centered on ideas that have stood the test of time, so long lasting, still existing until today, believing that these ideas are just as important and significant today as they were when they were first written. Historical, very legendary. So, why teach perennialism? Of course, we are all rational animals. So, schools should therefore develop the students' rational and moral powers. And a perennialist educator's goal is to teach students how to reason and build critical thinking skills. So this will really help for us teachers, future teachers and students, that it will help us to build our critical thinking skills, our higher order thinking skills, or what we call HOTS. And this would also allow students to develop their metacognition skills while using higher order thinking skills, as what I have said earlier. So, what to teach in perennialism? The perennialist curriculum is a universal one on the view that all human beings possess the same essential nature. What the perennialist teachers teach are lifted from the great books. So, perennialists recommend that students learn from reading and analyzing the works by history's finest thinkers and writers. So there are several texts and articles that are great help in teaching this curriculum because it will stir up the thoughts of the students as well as their communication skills. So by reading books, by reading great books, this will help them to how to analyze, how to further observe the information that was being written on the book, and this would also help to develop their communication skills. So beside that, beside that the students will build their critical thinking skills. They will also their communication skills would also improve and develop. So, how to teach perennialism? The perennialist classrooms are centered around teachers. This is teacher-centered approach. The teachers do not allow the students' interests or experiences to substantially dictate what they teach. So students engage in Socratic dialogues or mutual inquiry sessions to develop an understanding of history's most timeless concepts. So the difference between perennialism and progressivism is that progressivism is all about student-centered, in which they will employ experiences so that the learner can learn. How while the perennialism it talks about it is a teacher centered, in which the teachers would disperse information, would give information to the students, and it also involves Socratic dialogue. So what is meant by Socratic dialogue? So Socratic dialogue is a form of dialogue in which a group of people is encouraged to question and find a consensus on a universal question. So the Socratic method is a dialogue between a teacher and a student that is initiated by the instructor's constant probing questions in an effort to uncover the underlying ideas that form the student's views and opinions. So the teachers is still there. The teachers acts as the observer of the dialogue that has been made by between them, the student and the teacher. The next one is about behaviorism. Behaviorists believe human beings are shaped entirely by their external environment. So, external environment is the stimulus, or yeah. So, it is when applied to a classroom setting, focuses on conditioning student behavior with various types of behavior reinforcements and consequences called operant conditioning. The student's behavior would vary depending on his or her environment because the environment has a big impact in the behavior of the student. So it is a stimulus response thing. The change of the behavior is the response of the students towards his or her environment. So environment really matters. Environment has a big impact in the behavior of the person. So an example of behaviorism is when teachers reward their class or certain students with a party or special treat at the end of the week for good behavior throughout the week. So this is a motivational or positive reinforcement that the teacher would do in order to reward the students who is behaving well in the class, so that the other students did the same would also do the same. So the same concept is used with punishment. So the teacher can take away certain privileges if the student misbehaves. So the student will be punished if they misbehaves in the classroom. So why teach behaviorism? Behaviorist schools are concerned with the modification and shaping of students' behavior. They are after students who exhibit desirable behavior in society. And the reason why this philosophy in education must be taught is because we need to consider that environment is the great influencer of the students that would affect their behavior. So, in fact, behaviorism is key for educators because it impacts how students react and behave in the classroom and suggests that teachers can directly influence how their students behave. So, and now what to teach behaviorism? What to teach in behaviorism, I mean. So, behaviorist teachers teach students to respond favorably to various stimuli in the environment. So, how a student react when how a student react in his or her environment. So, behaviorism can also be thought of as a form of classroom management. So, behaviorists believe that if teachers provide positive reinforcement or rewards whenever students perform a desired behavior, so they will learn to perform that behavior on their own. The same concept applies to punishments. And now, how to teach behaviorism? Behaviorist teachers ought to arrange environmental conditions so that students can make the responses to stimuli. Teachers need to reinforce the positive reinforcement in the classroom because it is where the students can respond to it that would possibly give a good effect to their learning process. So teachers need to condition the class before the proper discussion. So they need to condition it by means of observing a conducive classroom. Linguistic philosophy. So, this philosophy views that many or all philosophical problems can be solved or dissolved by paying closer attention to language. And we are all aware that the main problem is the language barriers among us. So the few reasons why there is misunderstanding in the field of education is the language differences and the improper usage of it that would be a great barrier in the learning process of the students. So we need to understand more about the language that we use for it is very essential in the learning area. For we cannot thought without using our language. So first let us also check it. Let us also observe our language. So why teach in linguistic philosophy? So it aims to develop the communication skills of the learner because the ability to articulate, to voice out the meaning and values of things that one obtains from his or her experiences of life and the world is the very essence of man. So language is very important and it needs to be addressed. It needs to be studied well. And it is important to study and teach the proper usage of the language to help the students deliver clearly the message that they wanted to convey and to help them to cultivate their communication skills. So, studying this philosophy in education would help the learners in structuring good sentences and for using correct grammars, and they would be able to communicate with others. So, what to teach in linguistic philosophy? So, learners should be taught to communicate clearly, how to send clear, concise messages, and how to receive and correctly understand messages that were sent. So, communication takes place in three ways: verbal, which is all about speaking. It's all about speaking with the use of words. Non-verbal, it's all about symbols, signs, hand gestures, or physical expressions. And paraverbal is all about how the way you talk, the way you communicate, the tone of your voice, the pitch of it. So, to improve their communication skills, they must expand their vocabulary. So, they must be trained to talk in as many languages as the teachers are capable of. And the more languages a person knows, the able to better he or she is to communicate with the rest of the world. However, teachers must first teach the primary language before moving on to the other languages, because it is also the problem in which we have a language difficulties. It is because we don't know how to use proper words in our own dialect. We don't know how to construct well, how to use it, how to convey it, how to deliver it. So, as teachers, it is also our responsibility to teach our primary language, our own dialect. So, learning the fundamentals is the first step toward mastery. And lastly, how to teach linguistic philosophy. So, the most effective way to teach language and communication is the experiential way. It involves experiences among the students and the teachers. So, teachers should make the classroom a place where minds and hearts can interact. Teachers must execute linguistic performances for the pupils in order for them to remember the teachings and the linguistic philosophy. So this is the performance task. Teachers can give in performance tasks, or that would involve experiences. And in that way, students were able to experience this philosophy in education. So, for example, a one-on-one interview of the students to the foreign people or people outside the school campus, or we can also start it with role playing or talk show with the students inside the classroom. So in that way, they will be able to apply what they have been learned from the discussions or the lectures of the teachers. So their communication skills will be practiced, will be developed, will be improved by these kinds of activities that they will undergo. I mean, so last we have constructivism. So constructivism based on the idea that people actively construct or make their own knowledge. So, and that reality is determined by your experiences as a learner. So, just like John Dewey, which is about learning by doing. So, we can learn what we do, and experience is the best teacher. So, and the constructivist learning approach can have a big impact in the classroom because teachers act as facilitators of the learning process and setting specific learning goals, creating interactive activities, and emphasizing sensory learning. So teachers act as facilitators of the learning process. So why teach constructivism? So the reason why constructivism needs to be taught it is because to develop intrinsically motivated and independent learners adequately equipped with learning skills for them to be able to construct knowledge and make meaning of them. Students learn best when they are actively involved in learning situations rather than passively receiving knowledge according to constructivist theory. So, because students cannot be taught directly, the purpose of teaching is to create experiences that aid in the building of knowledge. So, what to teach? The learners are taught how to learn. They are taught learning processes and skills such as searching, critiquing, and evaluating information and drawing insights. So, before the way that teachers the the way that teachers did is they are spoon feeding the information, but now the teachers acts as the facilitator of the learning process, and the students will be the one to search for it, will be the one to act for it, so that they can learn what they do. They can learn on their own experiences. So it is also involves a student-centered approach. Teachers must teach the process of meaning and knowledge construction as opposed to passively receiving information. And students were given a task that they need to do, while teachers are the ones who will facilitate them so that they will construct ideas on how to accomplish the task with their own strategy. So, furthermore, learners are the makers of meaning and knowledge. So, they are also the contributors of knowledge, the students. So, how to teach constructivism? In the constructivist classroom, the teacher provides students with data or experiences that allow them to hypothesize, predict, manipulate objects, pose questions, research, investigate, imagine, and invent. Students use their metacognition skills or their higher order thinking skills in this area. So the constructivist classroom is interactive. Interactivity of the students is best when it's anchored with their experiences, which is true. So this promotes dialogical experiences of ideas among learners and between teachers and learners. So the teacher's role again is to facilitate this process, and furthermore, knowledge is constructed by learners through an active mental process of development. So for example, an an elementary school teacher presents a class problem to measure the length of the Mayflower. So that's the example. So rather than teacher starting the problem by introducing the ruler as the tool in measuring the Mayflower, the teacher allows students to reflect and to construct their own methods of measurement. So they will be given the time to think what are the possible tools that can be used in order to measure the height, the length, of the Mayflower. So that's it. They need to construct their own knowledge. And another example is that teacher will give a piece of paper and a scissor to the students. So the students will be going to analyze how are they going to do with that paper and scissors only. So they can try to um, they can use their higher order thinking skills. They can cut it, they can fold the paper, or they can make designs, make flowers of it. So they are given a chance to construct their own knowledge, and they can be considered as the contributors of knowledge. So that's for my report. Thank you and God bless you.